All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our interviews with some wonderful Academy Fellows that we have. And today we're very blessed to actually have Maria Cognetti with us from Cumberland County, not only just a fellow, but also a past president, one of the few and far between who's been able to accomplish such wonderful things. And Maria, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Jim, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Graduated from law school in '78 and basically joined the academy in '88, really as soon as I could possibly, because I don't know if we're still at the 10-year thing, but there was the 10-year rule. I think I started filling out the application about 2 years earlier, and it really took me that long to fill it out. I don't think we had computers back then.
Yeah.
By way of background, I grew up in New York City, hence you can see some of the stuff behind me. It is Yankees memorabilia. And since we're coming off of a sweep, everybody will love this, coming off of a sweep of Boston in the last few days, we have hopes to make the playoffs. So I'm a big Yankees fan, born and raised in New York City, but have been in Pennsylvania basically college, law school, and now. So been here for quite some time, practicing for 45 years. Did family law work from the day I got out of law school. Go figure. Yeah, back then it was something that nobody wanted to do. So whenever you got hired by like an old guy, it was like, here, you do the family law work, throw you a file, no help, no training, go to court. And that's what I was blessed with back then. I was in Pittsburgh, and some of the finest Pennsylvania jurists were in Pittsburgh at the time, Judge Larry Kaplan, which I think even half the academy knows. So I was blessed, and I had a good upbringing, and that helped get me into the academy very early on. And then from there, I don't know how long, it was pretty long. I did some committee work, and then eventually became my state Pennsylvania's representative on the Board of Governors. Board of Directors, Board of Governors. Yeah. And did that for, I think, 2 different terms at least. And then I forget who it was that got me my first vice presidency, but I had probably, I think I added it up at one point, 10 years on XCOM, because I went through every slot. I think I was fairly young, but I was vice president, I guess, for as many terms as you can. And then first vice president, and then incoming, and then finally president. Couldn't even tell you what year at this point, but and then I don't know if it was before or after my presidency, I had the honor of being the Fellow of the Year. So that was pretty cool. So that was my rise in the academy. I think the thing that, no, you didn't ask me this, but we'll talk about it anyway. The thing that I get most excited about was about 12 or 14 years ago, Guy Farrow and Kenny Altshuler and I kind of had this idea that we would do a joint program with the top-notch psychologists. And the neat part about it was when I was becoming president of the academy, Dr. Scheinvold, who everybody knows very well, but who happens to be one of my closest friends here, was also becoming president of the AFCC. So it was a perfect time to bring the 2 groups together. And long story short, here we are 12 or 14 years later. We've done a biannual conference for maybe 6 or 7 times. They've been very successful. And I've really, that's probably one of the things I'm most proud of having accomplished during my time in the academy.
And I'll tell you, and we just got off the heels of having it, in DC this past week, where again, instrumental, and not only as you were helping to present and do all that stuff. So it's a fascinating program to see probably where it started from its infancy to where it is now, and to what we hopefully will see in the future grow, as you and I kind of were talking about before getting on here, is to really increase the value of that program for our fellows, and to increase the value for the trial tracks, and to kind of really promote all of that going forward is important to a lot of us and the fellows. And it's fun to hear how you helped to start that kind of a program. And, from that, I know we typically do 2 years on one coast, 2 years on the other coast, but you've probably been more than just coast to coast. What's some of the best trips, or one of the most memorable trips that you can remember taking?
Well, clearly I would have to say that my meeting in Cancun was memorable, not just because it was my meeting, but in the process of doing the meeting, as you know, you get to do an extra trip or two, but I was so involved in the meeting planning that I made really good lifelong contacts in Cancun. And so for many years, I haven't traveled a lot lately, but for many years, that was my go-to. I would go down a couple times a year by myself, would just hang out with the people that I had gotten to know, and felt very comfortable down there. So that was neat in that respect. Probably one of the meetings that brings a smile to my face was St. Thomas. Why? Because one day, Lorraine, and you may be too young, Alma was Lorraine's sidekick, and she was the executive assistant, but she was Lorraine's sidekick. They were inseparable. And Lorraine and I got very, very close during my tenure, during Lorraine's years, very close. And so one night we were going out for our customary march. We're going to go somewhere and have a drink. And we went to this little place in St. Thomas where you go up an incline and you get to have a drink at the top of the hill or the mountain or whatever. And it was just like, in our careers, there are very few moments that are total relaxation, especially when you're in the middle of a meeting. And those two ladies together were just a joy to be around. And I will always remember that moment. I know it's a strange one, but that is a moment that sticks out for me. But there are many. Our meetings have so many memorable moments, things that we've done during the meetings, places I've been to that I never would have gotten to, never. I mean, to me, that's one of the big pluses of what we do, besides all the relationships, but that we have meetings in really unique places. And, you know, I'm glad I got to do it.
And like you said, with the relationships, because it's kind of fun when, you know, some of these fellows we only see, you know, some of them, the most we see them is once or twice a year. And it's as if when you see them, you pick up right where you left off. But it's the trips that you take, and next thing you know, the history that you have is, oh, it's Tuesday night. It's Tuesday night of mid-year meeting. This is what we do every Tuesday night of mid-year. And it's who we go out for a quick dinner with this group of fellows from all over the country. And it seems like I've watched, you know, some of the fellows in front of me that have formed these, you know, it's wonderful, you know, not just habits, it's great traditions of what has been happening for so many years, and getting together and getting to know people. It's fascinating to me. Oh,
that's just one of the upsides. Frankly, if you were to ask me if I had advice for any young fellows, it came to me, and I'm surprised I didn't think about this, but my advice would be to get involved. Because until I started to get involved, I was going to a Chicago meeting and hanging out with Pennsylvanians. And then as soon as you get involved, you on so many different levels, you meet people that become your lifelong friends. You know, my closest friends are in Texas and Florida, Connecticut. Those are the people that that's what's killing me about, November. If we don't get to have it live, that I won't get to see my buddies, because then that's 2 years. But you stay in touch with those people. And when you get involved, it opens so many horizons for you. I think one of the things, and I think it's also goes to like what's rewarding about the Academy. One of the ways that I used the Academy earlier on was I knew that directory, which used to be paper, was my Bible. Because I knew that if your buddy down the street calls you up and says his brother, who's a doctor in San Diego, needs a lawyer. Well, back then I didn't really know anybody. So I went to the book, and I knew with absolute certainty, I'm going to give that name to that person, and I feel good about that referral. Now, what comes from being now a 45-year lawyer and, oh my gosh, 35 years in the Academy, is now I know the guy in San Diego, so now I can give a referral for someone who I really know about. And those are connections. I mean, I consider myself a sole practitioner. I generally have 1 or 2 or 3 lawyers, but I'm kind of a sole practitioner. And I would not have done any of this. I would not have met these people. But now there's probably someone in almost any state that I can reach out to. I have a question, you need a favor, you need a referral. Gee, my friend wants a lawyer in San Diego, but I know they can't afford you, Bob, but is there someone in your firm? And again, you have confidence in that referral. And that comes from being active, getting involved, not just going to the meetings, not just going to the CLE, but getting on committees. Getting on committees is the best thing. You find something you're interested in and go with it. That's the best thing that I ever did within the academy, is start to get involved.
Well, and I think it helps so much because you hear it, and I've talked to a lot of people over the years about it, but it is the idea, I remember sitting there listening to Ken Hallschuler say that, this will be where some of your best friendships and longest lasting friendships will be formed. Well, probably because the fellows are so open and inviting to the newest of fellows. It might seem intimidating, but I still remember the first meeting where you and I met, and it's, sitting here out in San Diego and just talking and figuring all this stuff out. That's kind of a fascinating thing to me, is what can I do for you? And if the question is, if you want to get involved, you can be as involved as you want.
Yes. Yep. You can do as little or as much as you want to in the academy. And you can't say that about every group.
Right.
And you're right. I think about some of the people that I met like very quickly. And you just, that doesn't happen in a normal group. It's just who we are.
Yeah. And it is so true. I was kind of laughing. I was just, over 4th of July, I was playing golf in Black Mountain, North Carolina, where none of us lived, with a fellow from Florida and one from Virginia and one from Alabama. And you just kind of laugh. And it's like, how'd we get here? And, for me, they'd probably known each other a lot longer than I did, but I'm sitting here going, a decade ago, I didn't know these people. And yet here we are taking a vacation. It's fascinating.
And it's funny because when I had to cancel out on the Chicago meeting, Louise Truax had told me that she also had to cancel out for various reasons. And I said, now I've got an open week, and Louise has moved down to North Carolina. And she said, good, come down. And I'm like, okay, I can, like right now, I'm kind of like, I'll go anywhere I can drive. And it's a long drive, but I can make the drive. And I said, all right, you're on. I'll take my Chicago November meeting, and I'll go visit my buddy Louise, who has become a lifelong friend, and she's a Boston Red Sox fan. So go figure.
Yeah. Well, you should see her now. After that sweep, it's a great time to get together.
It's funny because there's always a series right around this time of year, and we generally bet on it. And it's like first game, winner, loser, I guess. Loser buys drinks in Chicago. Second game, loser buys lunch. Third game, loser buys dinner. And so we didn't bet this year, but I would have been in Fat City. But
yeah, you would have. That's what we were laughing at. I think we were, in the AFCC AAML conference we just had, Larry Bronstein's making sure the Yankees were being shown on this TV so he could make sure and watch his beloved Yanks as that was happening. And the next day, Brent's over here, or not Brent, we have Ben Stevens is over here going, well, where can I catch the Clemson game? I need to make sure that's on, and so you kind of just, it melds a whole lot of people that never would have put together, you don't think, in the first place. And it's amazing how the friendships.
But we can take that to another level, and then I'll shut up for a bit. But it's not just the people we've met within the academy. And this again goes to be active, do things, go to meetings. You think about, you and I have now been involved in the AFCC conference, the joint conference. And now I not only have lawyer connections throughout the country, but I can call the top psychologists in the field, and they're my pals. I mean, we've kind of run out of, with Arnie being like overwhelmed with work, we've run out of custody evaluators in this area. Saul Rappaport from Chicago now is our local go-to person here in central Pennsylvania. I mean, and when you can do that, when I can say to the court, oh, don't worry, I can get a good evaluator in here. And that's been really, because of all my custody work, that's been a great connection, which again, I would never have had.
It's true. And it's funny because we had, we've had Saul and I have worked on several cases down here. And I had a court in here in Dallas several years ago, appoint Jonathan Gould. And you're like, well, okay. And so you kind of laugh. It's like, great. And the other counsels look it over going, who is that? And I'm like, I'll call Dr.
Oh yeah,
Gould.
John Gould. Yeah. I'll hook you up.
So it's that insight that you have, and then, not just well, I've met in passing, I've heard your name. It's a true, I've gotten to know you so well over the years. I think that's a wonderful thing to have. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Now, is there any other parting words you'd like to leave us with, or any inspiration that you have that you haven't already left us with so much, other than I do like the fact that if it's you, myself, and Arnie and Saul, even, we're not going to form a basketball team, considering, the height of all of us, which Zoom has kind of made it kind of nice. You can't tell how tall we are. When you and Ben Stevens were talking, it's 6'3" versus you have no idea who's taller.
I believe Arnie texted me in the middle of my program and said that I looked short. And so then I made a point of going like this at one point, somehow worked it into my thing that, look how Zoom works. It really makes us all look the same height. And I hope he was laughing.
Yes, he had to have been.
Inspirational. I don't know about inspirational, maybe like gut advice, coming from a 45-year lawyer. Things are not always going to be wonderful. I'm not always going to be laughing like this and cheery, whether it's in your practice, whether it's even in, joining a group. Some days will be tough. Some days you will feel wanted, not wanted. You got to stick it out in your practice. I just had a week-long custody trial that I haven't gotten a decision on, and I just want to rip my heart out.
Yeah.
May win, may lose. And you just got to keep going, because in the end, it's all worth it. The academy is worth it. Your practice is worth it. Your own life is obviously worth it. But, it's been a good 45 years.
Oh, good. Well, I appreciate, thank you so much for taking the time to be interviewed today. And I'm really hoping to get to see you in person, but it's been great that now it's been, several times over the last couple of weeks that I've gotten to see you. So I really appreciate it. And thank you so much. And
thank you.
For those of all who are watching this, it's all going to be available on our newsletter and in our archives. So we really, really